Gary DePaul with Unlabeled Leadership. Welcome to episode 121, 3 more host leadership picks. Don Kirkey, Ajay Pangarkar, Dave Best, and Jack Bucalo. Here's a shout out to listeners in Arizona, specifically in Glendale and Gilbert, and in California, Antelope and Atherton. With that, let's get started. Occasionally, I'll have episodes dedicated to explaining concepts, clarifying principles or beliefs, and even explain traditional assumptions. What you're about to hear are 3 episodes that follow this type of format. Part 1. Don Kirkey and Ajay Pangarkar encourage growth. In episode 41, Don and Ajay talk about the leadership principle encourage growth. In this particular part of the episode, they discuss the leadership belief encouraging people to grow and leave their role contributes to organizational growth. Here are Don and Ajay.
Encouraging people to grow and leave their role for the organization to grow is an interesting concept because basically it's the same thing that we tell our kids about how mama bird has to kick the baby birds out of the nest to fly on their own. Or the old saying that we always say, if you love something, set them free, they'll come back to you. If they don't, kind of thing. And I'm being a little altruistic here, but at the end of the day, if you let people go and grow into other areas, and when they come back, even within the organization, from your department to another department, when they come back, they have a less of the blinders on and more of a wider perspective of cross-functional problem solving. And they can bring new ideas to the table and not be constrained by, the invisible handcuffs sometimes we put on in an organization where this is the way you have to do things in our department or in our area. And even if they leave the company, people always, in the old days, and I say the old days, 20 plus years ago, if somebody left the company, the company would never take them back. And I'm like, well, if they left, they probably became better people. And if they're coming back, they're bringing all that new skill set and experience back with them. Why wouldn't you want to take it back? Because they already know the company in the first stage when they were with us. And now they're coming back with more wonderful stuff with them. So why would we not want to take them back? So it's a little short-sightedness if people don't let people go and grow. And it's a scary thing because resources are tight, it's limited. And so we have to, it's a scary thing to let people go off and wander because you may not ever get them back. But if you treated them well in the first place, you have an opportunity to bring that skill back into your organization.
I want to play on something Ajay was saying, because if this is this issue of treating them well, if you treat talent as though it was a zero-sum game, then you really are going to be in trouble. When someone leaves your team to move to another team in the same organization, you're going to think of that as a loss. Talent is not a zero sum. Their talent is infinitely growable if you are the right leader and you're approaching your people the right way. And I think that if you have developed these people and they step up to roles elsewhere in the organization, particularly, there is a power and an influence that comes to you for being the person who has mentored, who has brought these people on board, has mentored and developed them, and then turned them loose on the organization. Your influences and your sphere of influence is only going to grow when that sort of thing happens.
Can I add to your point, Don? It's very important that you recognize that people need to grow and sometimes need to leave. I mean, as a leader, I've managed several different types of departments. And one thing I never wanted to stand in the way of people's growth and potential is to handcuff them to our team or our department. And sometimes, just recently, I remember a team member on the team I was leading, I said to them, I said, I hate to lose you, but you have so much more potential that you can contribute to this other team that I think you need to go there. And you need to, help them and contribute to that growth there. And it takes a little bit of courage as a manager and a leader to lose that resource, because you grow dependent on these people. They do good work for you, and you're helping them grow. And as Don says, you mentored them and helped them flourish. But at the same time, you sometimes got to kick them out of the nest for your own good, and put them into areas that you feel they need to, first of all, leverage their strengths and capacity. But through that, they will grow even further. And as Don says, if you continue to treat them well and it's not a zero-sum game, they probably will come back, or, down the road, they'll eventually become a better ally for you in their other departments. So there's a lot of advantages for doing this.
That's true. If someone actually leaves the organization to go somewhere else, you may have lost that person as a resource, but if there was no room to grow up or move across, when they're at that other organization, they're going to reflect how you led them, and your reputation goes with them as well.
You grow a reputation that's very strong. I mean, you grow a reputation that people want to now work for you, because you're that type of leader that's going to help them grow and flourish. You're planting the seeds in these people too, because they'll carry that same attitude, or to a certain extent, in their new roles as they grow into leaders.
Gary, in a previous podcast, we talked about leaders whose desire is the success of those who work for them. And if we're serious about that concept, then as both of you are saying, sometimes that success is going to be elsewhere. And you grieve when wonderful people leave, but there's a satisfaction as well in the part that you play. Building a pipeline at an organizational level is still something that all healthy organizations need to think about.
Good leaders know that pipeline. Weak leaders or weak managers fail to fill that pipeline.
Well, and in fact, weak leaders are often the plug in the pipeline.
Yes.
Part 2, Dave Best and when valuing people is legitimate. In episode 65, Dave Best examines 3 traditional leadership assumptions, which are faulty and can be very harmful. In this part, Dave talks about the assumption that team members are less important than revenue, profits, operational expenses, and leaders. Here's Dave to explain.
Gary, my thought when we talk about putting team members above revenues, profits. So you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, and Home Depot sent all their corporate associates home. Then the next step was all the field associates, the district managers, and people that traveled from store to store were told, no more traveling store to store. Then we cut back our hours. When I say cut back our hours, we cut back our hours far. And we were putting limits on the number of customers and associates combined in a store. At first you're like, it's just a little bit of lip service. I went to the local store here and they had X's marked on the sidewalk where people would line up and go in. It started at the CEO, and I heard it in every team meeting. Our associates are what drives our organization, and they are more important than anything. They are more important than any sales. We don't care if we sell anything else here going forward. We are going to take care of our people. Is that really the case? There was a point in time for about 2 months that I was in leadership meetings and there was not a mention of sales. People didn't talk about sales. We talked about how do we keep our associates safe? How do we keep the business going and support our customers for what they need? But we pulled back in our line of work. Spring Black Friday is a huge event. We put a ton of advertising out about get ready for spring. Home Depot pulled all of that back last year because we did not want to send more customers to the stores than were needed. Whereas our competitor, they went forward with all of their advertisements for spring, and they forced people into the stores. And I was reading things online of associates at that other store that they felt unsafe in their working environment, and they would bring it up to leadership, and leadership was like, we need to sell. We didn't care. That was the answer to everything. Any question we had was, what is the best thing to do for the associate? Don't worry about sales. I can honestly say that was one of the first times that I've ever seen it to that degree, where it was something that you heard the C-suite say, and it cascaded down to VPs, directors, senior directors, managers. Everybody in the organization was saying the same thing, is our associates are the most important thing. They drive the business. Home Depot will be here. It'll take care of itself.
The only other time I've heard of anything close to that was with Southwest Airlines. This is from the book called Nuts, like peanuts, by Freeberg and Freeberg. It's a thick book about all the wonderful things about Southwest Airlines. So it's very pro Southwest. But in the back, there's about 10 pages, 10 or 20 pages about leadership. And in there, it talked about how they had to make some serious cuts. And the CEO was facing, do I lay employees off? What do I do? Because they value their employees so much, the CEO sent a letter to everyone's home, not to their business, but to their home, and said, if we can get everyone to save $5 this quarter or this month, I can't remember what it was, we won't have to do anything drastic. And people put through. They're given the opportunity and they didn't have to do any layoffs or anything like that. The point of the story is, if you're focused on revenue, profits, operational expenses, exclusive of employees, you'll end up making decisions that are best for improving revenue, profits, decreasing operational expenses at the expense of employees versus keeping the employee in mind. Because I think what your story illustrates is not only do you value your employees and their health and well-being, but indirectly, and not the reason for doing it, but as a consequence, is that when you do have that value, the employees are the ones that take care of the customers and make that experience successful.
Absolutely. And then it runs through the organization. When you have it and you have those things in place, you believe them, the organization believes them, it makes all those decisions easier. We don't have to sit there and go, well, this is going to be sales versus profit. What's going to drive people in the stores? Nope. We are in, to use the term, we are in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
We need to take care of our associates. So whatever's going to do that, let's do that. When you look at it from a corporate perspective, we've got people that work in the corporate office, from security to print shop people. Their jobs rely on the fact that the office is open. The office was completely closed, but we took care of those people. They stayed employed. They didn't lose their jobs. They gave them other things to do. One other story, to personalize it to me. My wife got sick a couple of years ago and ended up, in the hospital, and major surgery. I was devastated, kind of came out of nowhere. Several days, no sleep at the hospital. My boss walks in the door of the hospital and he's like, okay, I came here as a friend, but also as a boss at the Home Depot. And the senior director and the VP had talked, and here's the situation is, you're going to keep working. We're going to give you things to do here and there, edit PowerPoints, that kind of stuff. But your role number one is to take care of your family. If we don't see you again for 3 months, we don't see you again for 3 months. We don't want you to go on a leave because you are going to need a paycheck to cover medical expenses. So you will continue to collect a paycheck and you will work as you can. I was literally out of work for 3 months and I check email maybe once every 2 weeks if I could. It was not lip service. It was truly, we need to take care of this individual in this situation because this individual will help take care of others later.
And how effective would you be working with all that weighing heavily on you?
You would definitely not get my best. You would get something that would be way less than that. And again, it shows what kind of organization you work for when you can see clearly that you're putting associates as a whole or the individual as a whole above sometimes even maybe what's best for the organization.
What a contrast. There are organizations out there that really do what you just described. And I think it's wonderful that Home Depot did that for you, and they had the foresight of it and they valued you that much to help you through that situation versus the contrast. I've told a boss that I was having anxiety attacks because of the way he was treating me. And 2 days later, I was laid off.
Ugh.
So it just says something about the company and the strength of the company. And I think that when you do value employees, that they take care of customers, you have longer tenure of employees, and that really eliminates a lot of productivity losses or expenses because of turnover and all.
And you also have people willing to give more.
Yeah.
If the organization cares for me enough that they're going to pay me for 3 months while I'm barely able to work and managing things going on at home, you know what? I'm willing to put in the extra time when I need to get stuff done, because if the organization is going to take care of me, I'm going to make sure I take care of my role within the organization. I see that throughout the current organization I'm with Home Depot and with Walmart prior. It was the same thing is you're willing to do more because the organization and the people within the organization are willing to do more for you.
Part 3, Jack Bucalo and Action Plans. In episodes 11 and 14, Jack discusses some of the leadership development challenges that many corporations and organizations face. In this part, Jack talks about how crucial it is to give action plans to participants after they complete formal training. Here's Jack to explain.
As we get to the end of the leadership development program, each attendee should establish the broad parameters of an action plan, which is designed to achieve one or more of the important business objectives for the organization. And within 1 month, each attendee should conduct several meetings with their own staff to develop a detailed action plan that can be submitted to their superiors. And this detailed action plan is where the practical business value of the training comes in. We're dealing with the specific business objectives that are critical to the financial strength and strategic success of the company. For 1 or 2 of those, for each of the attendees, we're developing a detailed action plan that he or she can put into effect to help achieve these business objectives. And those kinds of assurances give the upper management the comfort level that each of these business objectives are supported by a detailed action plan to help them be accomplished. Ironically, there is a major byproduct that comes from teaching the hard and the soft skills together. After the line executives realize the significant business value that such programs bring, they are much more favorably inclined to look at leadership development programs that deal solely with soft skills.
Jack, can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. We know that most upper level management have that natural bent towards the hard skills. They look at hard skills as 75% of the mix and soft skills as 25% of the mix. So when we are able to design a leadership development program that helps them to achieve the hard skills and the hard business objectives that have to be achieved, you do that successfully. The line management then has a tendency to say, these guys helped me achieve some of my business objectives, and they did a pretty good job working with my management team. So now when they are about to present a separate program on some kind of soft skill that we feel is critical throughout the company, I'm much more inclined to send my people to that program to see whether or not it has applicability throughout other parts of our organization and see if we can use those soft skills much more effectively in the future.
I'm going to throw something out there that I just thought of. You say that general managers and executives may appreciate leadership training that uses that 75-25 hard and soft skill split. Wouldn't it be interesting if talent development teams implement a few leadership programs using that split as a guide, and because of the positive effect, they incorporate hard skills in future leadership development programs? And wouldn't it be interesting if they went back and revised their existing courses so that it would also include hard skills?
Absolutely. Once you prove the successful worth of providing more practical business value through leadership development programs that have both the hard and the soft skills, from that point on, it's a mutually beneficial situation because the line executives get to see the value of the soft skills and the hard skills, and the leadership development staff get a chance to see the important relationship between the two sets of skills.
That makes sense.
I think so too. In conclusion, it's my view that the CEOs and line executives will gain a much more favorable view of the company's leadership development function when, and only when, they see that their leadership development programs for senior to upper management directly helps them to achieve their specific business objectives, which will help the company in turn to achieve its improved profitability and strategic success. The only meaningful way to do that is to teach the appropriate mix of hard and soft skills together in a workshop setting that pragmatically helps the attendee to achieve some of his or her actual business objectives.
Well, Jack, I'm curious, what do you think would happen 10 to 20 years from now if leadership development programs continue to only use soft skills?
Gary, I'm afraid that the opinions of CEOs and line executives will continue to be that their leadership development programs have failed them. Having personally witnessed the success of this type of leadership development program, which adds direct practical business value to the company, I know that these leadership type programs can be effectively designed in a way to meet a company's business needs and objectives and the leadership development needs at the same time.
My thanks to my guests. If you'd like to learn more about them, go to the show notes. And if you have a question or comment, go to unlabelleadership.com, click the message icon, and leave a voicemail message for up to 1 minute. I'd like to thank those who contribute to the show. Your contributions makes a difference because this is an all-volunteer service. Thank you for listening. This is Gary DePaul. Until next time, lead on.